What's up, guys? What's up? All right, so today's notes is difference of squares, and what I'm teaching you today is basically a shortcut to get the answer faster. The X factor way will still work, and when I teach you right now, it will still work, but it's just kind of a shortcut. All right, so if you get confused and like, hey, well, I don't understand what you're doing, just always use the X factor way. All right, so we're gonna be dealing with a special case, and those special cases will look like this, where let me say this right here, where we're always missing that middle term, right? You see, we have something like y squared, and we don't have a y, but then we have a constant, right? We have the number by itself. All of these like that, we're always missing that bx, that middle term here. Now, when we're missing that middle term, there's a specific reason why, and it looks just like this. So let's take this one for example right here. Let me take this, move it out of the way. So let's say I had 5x plus 1, and then I had 5x minus 1. So it's the same terms with opposite signs in the middle. What actually happened? So remember, when I multiply that, right, I should get 25x squared minus 5x plus 5x minus 1. All right, here's the thing. Anytime you have the same thing, the same terms, right? Same terms, but opposite signs in the middle, these two middle terms will always cancel out. So negative 5x plus 5x is 0x, right? Is 0x. But 0 times anything just goes away. All right. So what I actually do have here is 25x plus 0x minus 1. So sorry, I had to turn something off, guys. All right. So then, yes, this is super important to remember right here. This middle part right there. So what I'm trying to show you is that anytime that we have two binomials with opposite signs, its answer will always be like this. That middle term will always go away, and you'll have the first and the last, your A value and your C value. So let's go ahead and do examples like those. Now, I'm going to show you the long way, or just the normal way that we usually do to get the answers. Now I'm going to show you a shortcut, okay? Because the difference of squares will always look like this, where you take A squared minus C squared. So let's see, let's look at this actually. So assuming, let's just say, hey, let's just say that this right here is your A, and then this right here is your, let me erase some stuff because this is too messy real quick. All right, so let's call this your A, and let's call this your C, right? So it says to get your final answer, all you have to do is square A and square C, and you should get your answer. So if A, I'm gonna write it over here, if A is 5x, and we need to square it, minus B, or not B, sorry, in this case it's C. What is our C? Our C value is this, whatever is, that number is there, 1. And we're going to square it, and we should get our final answer. So remember, when we square this, in this case, because it's just 5x and it's not like 5x plus 1, we can distribute the exponent because it's just one term. So this is now 5 squared x squared minus 1 squared, but 1 squared is just 1. And then 5 squared is 25. X squared stays x squared minus 1. So this rule applies because I do get the same answer. Again, if this confuses you, please just stay with me, guys. Watch, it's super easy. And this is actually easier than the other problems. Watch. Just watch. All right, so we need to do the X factor to help us get our answer. But the issue is we need to fill in some missing information. We need to fill in this BX. So remember, there's always there's 3 terms there. We just need to fill it in. So this here actually is A squared plus 0A minus 4. This is super important to do, so you see why in a minute. So A squared plus 0A minus 4. And the reason why I'm doing plus 0A is because I'm basically saying it's not there, but I'm putting it there for a reason. You'll see right now. All right, so then we draw our X. Remember, this is A times C, where we're doing times here. And this is plus and then B. All right, so here we go. A, that's 1, times C is a negative 4. So then negative 4 goes here. And then B value, which is 0. And remember, you ask yourself what numbers multiply to give me negative 4, or 4, in this case, negative 4, and then add up to give me 0. Now, let me say this. Because these are a special case, these two numbers right here will always be the same number, just opposite signs. So let's think about this. What are my multiples of 4? We only have 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. Now, which of these groups of numbers, pairs of numbers, can I use so that when I multiply them, I get a -4, but when I add them, I get 0? The only ones that work are 2 and 2, right? And then one of them has to be a negative, because when you add a -2 plus a +2, you get 0. All right, cool. So why did we do that? Because we needed to break this down, just like we did last time, remember? We need to break this down, What do I have? I have a -2a and a +2a, right? That's what I did, I broke it down. All right, bring down what we have not used yet. I haven't used this -4, and I haven't used this a squared. All right, let's group it. All right, so we need to look at this here and this here. A squared minus 2a, what's a common factor? A is. So we have a minus 2. So we have 2a minus 4. What's a common factor? I think only just a +2. So we have a divided by 2. Are my parentheses the same? Yes, they are. So I have a minus 2 because these become 1. And then what's left over, which is a and a +2, becomes its own parentheses. Bam. Just like that. See how easy it is? And just like what I said, right? You see we have a, -2, +2, right? It's basically the same, just opposite signs in the middle. All right, so let's do a few more examples. All right, again, when we're looking at this, we look at it and we say, all right, let's make sure I fill in what it actually is, the missing information. So we're missing, this is actually n squared plus 0n minus 64, right? All right, cool. That's actually that. There's a 0 there, so let's go ahead and draw my x here. So we have a times c, and then times here, then b, and then plus. All right, so let's go a times c. Well, this is a 1 here. 1 times a -64 is just going to be a -64. And then a 0 goes down here. Again, like I said, guys, there's a special case where these two numbers here always are going to be the same numbers. What is one number when you multiply it times itself will give you 64? It's just going to be 8. Oh, excuse me. It's going to be 8. And then one of them has to be a negative, right? One of them has to be a negative, because when you multiply, you get a -64, but when you add, you get a 0. All right, let's go ahead and separate this into 2. We have -8n and +8n. Bring down what we have not used. I haven't used this 64, and I haven't used this n squared. All right, almost done. What do these two have in common? And these two. So n squared minus 8n, they have just an n in common. Bam, bam, 8. Here we go. What do these have in common? They have a +8. Take out the +8. So now you have n minus 8. All right, these become 1, n minus 8. And then these get their own parentheses, n plus 8. That's it. All right, so I'll do one more example for you guys, and then I'm going to show you the shortcut way that's even faster, okay? The shortcut way. Let's just do, I'll just do this next one. All right, real quick. So remember, it's actually x squared plus 0x minus 81, right? Yep. All right, so I'm going to do this. And then we know this is a times c, where you're multiplying here. This is plus, and this is b. All right, a times c is still going to be a -81. 0 goes here. What two numbers, when you multiply them, will give you a -81, right? This is going to be a 9 and 9. One of them has to be negative. All right. Remember, we did that to break this up. So I have one positive 9x and one negative 9x. Bring down what I haven't used, 81, x squared. Factor out what's the common factor. In this case, we have x plus 9 is left. Factor out, I need to factor out a -9 and not a +9, a -9, because if I factor out a +9, I'm going to have -x minus 8, or minus 9, and I don't want that, so we need to factor out a negative 9, so that when I actually divide, right, because I'm actually dividing by 9, divided by 9, the negatives cancel out, because a negative 9 divided by negative 9 is just x. Negative 81 divided by negative 9 is a positive 9. Cool, cool, cool. All right, so then we have x plus 9, we have x minus 9, and that's the answer right here. All right, so real quick, here's the last two examples I'm going to show you that are, here's a shortcut. Now, I'll show you with one down here, and then I'll show you with one with the numbers a 1. All right, so just like we went up here and we said, hey, what is A, and I squared it to get my final answer. I said, what is C, and I squared it. We're going to do the same thing, and I'll get my answer without having to do this little X factor. And it only works for this one right here. It only works for these when you don't have that middle term. All right, so I look at this and I say, hey, what did I have to square so that when I squared it, I got 9b squared? And then what did I have to square so when I squared it, I got 16. And let's think about this. In order for me to get 9b squared, right, I have to have a 3b, right? Because when you distribute that 2, this is then that becomes 3 squared, which is 9. And when you distribute this 2 here, that becomes b squared. So this a value is now 3b, right? This first term is going to be 3b. Now, what must go here so that when I square it, I get 16? Well, that's got to be 4. So now I have my a and my c value, so that means my answer, without having to do any work, is going to be this. 3b minus 4 and 3b plus 4. It doesn't matter which one comes first. You can do 3b plus 4 first and then 3b minus 4. So it's just that easy. That's a shortcut. So much easier, right? All right, we'll do another one. So I say, hey, look, this is missing a middle term. So that means it must have this answer look like this. So I ask myself, what must go in parentheses so that when I square it, I get 36a squared? Well, number-wise, what number squared gives me 36? That has to be a 6. And then a, in order for me to get a squared, right? So here's my a value. There's that first part. And then what number squared gives me 121? Well, that's 11. All right, so I already know my answer. So it's going to be 6a plus 11. And then we have 6a minus 11. Bam. See, that's how easy it is, guys, without having to do any extra work. Let me show you with something when it's a number that it's just k squared. This one is even easier because, so you ask yourself the same questions. What has to go here? And in this case, you don't even have to think about a number. It's just k, right? Because when you square k, you get k squared. And then what about here? 5 has to go here. So when you square it, you get 25. So now you found your a and your c value. So we have k minus 5 and k plus 5. All right, that concludes your notes.